Hey guys, welcome to the Wild Bitch podcast. I'm Meghna,
And Bhuvan New.
and we've got a great show planned for you. Yeah, the starting's a little rocky, but yes. And Unfortunately, due to whatever space constraints and whatever constraints, we're both going to be facing the same way. So you'll have to see us this way, this episode. We do have a special guest coming on this episode, so you have to wait and be locked until the end to hear about her amazing research. It's research that you probably would not have heard of at all before because we were also shocked. But before she comes, we will deal with some stories. And The headline story, we don't have a headline this time because our headline is actually about her research. But we have other stories which are about how humpbacks have returned to Rio. And what does that mean for them? Will tourism actually help or hinder their progress? In addition to that, we will also be talking about how only a few hundred Timor green pigeons may remain, and if there is actually time to still save them. And then We're going to be talking about how the Philippine Supreme Court, that's monitoring commercial fishing vessels, has said that monitoring is unconstitutional. So where are these fishing vessels going to go, and what does it mean for the fishes? We're going to be talking about that. What else do we have on the roster groups?
Um, we have a story about octopus, which is basically related to octopus farming and how their intelligence is causing farmers a problem. I mean, it's a good thing if they can't farm. Um, we'll do a small plug of a National Geographic documentary series directed by John Favreau from the Jungle Book fame. And we will also talk about a marine reserve that has opened in New Zealand with Maori co management. So, that traditional knowledge theme that we have been carrying and have been reporting on for a few weeks. And as Meghna said, we have a very special guest. So, yeah, stick around and we shall take it from there.
Okay, so our first topic, it's about humpback whales. Humpbacks returned to Rio. The whales are back from the brink of extinction, but will tourism help or hinder? Humpback whales have made a remarkable recovery from near extinction, and this is true across the world. Once hunted to fewer than 1,000 individuals, the population is now estimated at 35,000. The dramatic recovery has sparked a significant tourism boom in Brazil, particularly around Rio de Janeiro, where whale watching tours attract numerous visitors eager to witness these magnificent aquatic acrobats. The resurgence offers an exciting wildlife experience with tourists spotting pods of bottlenose dolphins and humpback whales breaching majestically offshore. However, marine biologists express serious concerns about whether booming tourism and active conservation efforts can successfully coexist. While the whale's return represents an important conservation success story, important questions remain about the long term impacts of increased human activity on these recovering marine populations and their fragile ecosystems. Um, and I think that this is something that's talked about everywhere. Like, conservation stories are great, but then once like these animals bounce back, then you're like, oh, now what? Like, how do we coexist now that there are too
Mm.
many of them? It's the same thing with, I think, our previous or the episode before that, when we were like, oh, we have too many tigers now in India. Now what do we do with those tigers? So it's
I think
very
we
similar.
reported on too many bears issue a hunting license, too many pythons issue a culling order, too many possums issue a industry.
A
I mean
possum
fur
hunt.
industry.
Yeah.
Create a fur industry. Too many raccoons. What was that raccoon? Jimmy.
Jimothy,
Jimothy.
Jimothy, Jimothy. Too many raccoons, then one makes the spotlight, so it makes it a little easier for them. Um, but yeah, I think one of the most beautiful things that I think Oops and me both have experienced together. In fact, we went to Tonga, and Tonga is one of the few
Hmm.
places in the world that you can ethically swim with humpback whales. And ethically means that they have rules of how to swim with the whales, how much distance you have to keep, and especially because the whales are there with the babies, so they're even more protective and they're even more
Hmm.
on alert. But it was a great experience, and you got to know how amazing these whales were, how curious they were, how friendly they were, how much they
I
let you
mean,
into their
I'm
lives.
afraid of sharks, and I first time I went in the water with the whales, I thought the whales were sharks, and I was very scared of the whales. The first time I went in, and then the second time a little less scared, then a little less scared. But I was scared of the whales at the beginning because obviously the scale is something that you can't imagine, and even the babies, because these are mothers and nursing babies, calves. So even the babies, they're like one school bus long or something like that. So it's a huge scale that is sort of kind of puts you into perspective. And also ocean is a place. If you're diving in reefs and such, you can always see the most of the times you can see the bottom, but this is mid open ocean, so you can't see the bottom. It's just not a swimming pool. I mean, not at all. But yeah, so that was a nerve-wracking experience for the first time in the water. But then I think yeah, it was beautiful, as Meghna was saying. Yeah.
I think Oops forgot how the last day there was one really curious humpback whale baby that kept charging at us. It thought of us as bowling pins, and it would
Oh.
come charging, and we would scatter. And Oops was scared of that baby too. And
Ah,
he kept
yes.
saying, "Oh, the baby's coming towards me."
It was a
Yeah.
good experience. Long time ago though, almost 7 years. 7 years now.
Yeah,
7, 8 years now.
no. This was 2009. Oh yeah, 6 years. Oh my god. Yeah, it's been 6 years. Okay. Yeah, but having said that, humpback whales are really intelligent. We hear so many amazing stories. Like they have saved multiple times, like seals from sharks, and nobody knows why they do that. Like why they go out of their way to save other animals. They're absolute like heroes in the ocean, and they're really intelligent, very smart, and they have this resilience. Like the mothers are like hungry for 6 months and they're feeding their babies still, so they're great that way. But I think the problem with whale tourism in general is that it can be extremely unethical, and this is something that I have seen personally when I went to Sri Lanka. Like there would be so many boats onto one whale, they would not even let the whale like just come up to breathe, so they would not let it surface. There are just too many boats onto one whale, then they're just trying to drop people off like randomly. There's no rules, there are no regulations, and that's where I think tourism becomes a problem for the whales, and the whales and the humans can't coexist. But I think if there are rules, like how you have them in French Polynesia or you have them in Tonga, there it actually flourishes. The locals have some great work for these months where the whale tourism comes in, and it's a win-win situation, right? It's like I think that
Hmm.
that is what is needed in this situation too.
Yes, I mean that's kind of a no-brainer for us who have been in this, have experienced this. But I think this has to be taken into account by the regulating bodies as well. Um, Research based is what my viewpoint would be. um, all the precautions that need to be taken. You can't just say, okay, this is good for the whales. It has to be research back, because otherwise there's no way of, it's one person's word against another person's word, right? So if it is not, if it is not research based, that is. So yeah, so I think research based approach, and yeah, if we are, um, because as we have pointed out, the money from the tourism generally goes into sort of the conservation of that particular species that people are, visiting or looking at or whatever. So I
Absolutely.
think.
I think that is where the problem is, that they start looking at the animal as a cash cow instead of like
Mm,
protecting it or saving it or making life better for it. Only very few countries do it, and mostly those countries are developed countries. Developing countries try to just milk whatever money they can from these animals, and very late, like like much later in the whatever in the timeline, do they realize that, oh, protecting them is also part of it. And this is what I feel like with Rio, because I don't know if they can be as ethical as the other countries that actually follow those rules when it comes to whale tourism. So that is the only problem that I feel in this case, that there needs to be proper rules and regulations, and there needs to be proper follow up of these rules and regulations.
yeah, yeah. Absolutely agree with that. I think Brazil, we have covered Brazil a few times now with the manatee story and the
The
Petrobras
shark
story.
and the shark, right?
Yeah, yeah, and the shark meat stories. So yeah, I think hopefully Brazil takes into account those. I mean, Brazil is a developed country. Um, you
Is
know,
it? I thought it's still developing.
I mean, yeah, but it's like economically pretty strong, part of the BRICS alignment as well. So yeah, I think we can certainly hope that there are scientists. I mean, there are obviously scientists there who are working on this and uh, wanting that outcome that as we want. But tourism is good, but as long as it's done in a respectful way. You know, yeah,
Yeah, that is important. If we have any updates on this, which I mean, this is not something that's more updatable. It's probably something we might know or get updates of passing by, because it's one of those stories which is really positive but could become negative in the future, kind of thing. So let's see how it pans out, and we will always, as always, keep you updated on anything that comes this way. Yeah.
sure.
So what do we have next, Oops?
This is a report from The Guardian. This says, too smart to eat. Why octopus farms are such a slippery problem. Spanish fishing company Nueva Pescanova announced a 65 million euro investment in 2022 to build the world's first industrial octopus farm near Las Palmas in the Canary Islands. Despite octopus's notorious difficulty in farming, the company projected producing 3,000 tons annually by 2025. However, this controversial initiative has been abandoned, re- reigniting ethical debates about
Farming.
farming these highly intelligent wild animals at industrial scale. The plan raised significant concerns about animal welfare and sustainability. The controversy highlights the complex intersection of food production, marine conservation, and animal ethics. While octopuses are considered food in many cultures, their demonstrated intelligence and complex behaviors challenge the sustainability and ethics of large scale farming operations. The project's cancellations reflects growing scrutiny of current industrial aquaculture practices. Yeah, I don't have a ton of perspective on this. Like, how do we deal with that? But does an animal's intelligence determine whether we should eat it? Mm,
Yeah, I think this is like the perfect discussion question for this, because even when I was reading the the summary for this topic, I was like, yeah, like why are we so biased towards octopus and not towards any other animal? Like just because an animal is intelligent, to not eat it makes no sense. Like that should not be the barrier, or that should not be like the decisive factor to eat or not eat an animal. And it's not like other animals are not intelligent. They would probably be as intelligent as a 2-year-old kid or a 3-year-old kid, or a 5-year-old kid. It doesn't mean that they're dumb, or they lack intelligence. I honestly feel like we kind of decide Like, oh, like we just decide that, okay, this animal seems interesting, so let's not eat it, right? Like what else is the
I
barrier in our
think we
head?
have decided that okay, humans are the number one in intelligence, so we're definitely not eating humans. Although some cultures do, uh,
Not anymore.
many. I think almost all cultures did at some point, but we decided that okay, we are too intelligent to eat ourselves. That we don't do, and then I think there is a sort of diminishing list there. Chimpanzees, we obviously are too similar to us looking and look wise and everything. We won't eat chimpanzees, gorillas, and those things. But I think after that, maybe some primates and monkeys also we won't eat. But then after that, I think that becomes like a gray zone. We can eat, somebody can eat, somebody can't eat. Um, I mean, I love eating
Yeah.
octopus, so um,
So much for being an David Attenborough fanboy who has said that please
I
don't eat
mean,
meat.
look, if the tiger eats the deer, does it make the tiger bad? I mean, no, but it's not the
But
eating; it's the
you cannot compare
consumption.
yourself to a tiger.
Like it's a scale of consumption. It says in this article, right? It's the industrial scale that is the problem. Again, like
No,
I agree that is a
I don't.
problem, but like we are 8 billion of us, like almost 9 billion we're reaching. So how do we, I don't know. It's a very contentious thing for me as well to answer. Yeah, generally.
One, we cannot compare ourselves to a tiger. A tiger literally only hunts when it's hungry. It eats and it keeps its kill on the side for a few days as well. It doesn't even hunt if it's not hungry. On the other end, humans would hunt even if they don't need to. They would kill, they would fish, they would do everything. They would have excess, they would waste. All of that happens. So it's two different things. Secondly, obviously, there's a lot of abuse, even in terms of farming. A lot of animals and the way they're kept. I think we read about even salmon farming, we read about prawn farming, we read about a lot of farming that people have tried to do, and it has led to whatever catastrophic consequences. There's like a lot of spread of disease, there's not a lot of cleaning, there's not a lot of hygiene. All of that adds up to it. Like, the more ethical and sensible thing to do, at least in 2026, is to limit your consumption of seafood and meat, especially red meat. Not just red meat, all kinds of meat, because that means you will give more space to for the forest to grow. There would be lesser space required for agriculture. The same amount of space that would be required to feed 8 million people on a plant based diet as opposed to an animal based diet is humongous. Um, and in this case with the octopus, I think a lot of things that changed were and did happen because of the documentary called My Octopus Teacher. If anybody hasn't watched it, you have to watch it, because I think everyone that I know who's watched it has had a very different take on octopus after that. Like octopi, octopuses, however you would want to call them. But people just didn't know that they could be that interactive, that intelligent, that amazing. And we needed a documentary to prove it and change that perspective for us. But yeah, having said that, I personally feel that some animals' intelligence shouldn't be the deciding factor to eat it or not eat it.
Hmm. Yeah, I think we have to balance that against the what people are wanting to eat and people what people are consuming. But as a general rule of thumb, that is what our message is, that if we can reduce the meat consumption, substitute with, I don't know, fake meat, I don't know, or plant
Or
based
buy
meats.
Yeah, not fake meat, but even there's like lab grown meat, which is actually grown from a single cell. There's that
Mm,
experimentation as well. The problem is that obviously people will not change that quickly. It will happen over time, and I don't know how much time we actually have. That is the question. We don't know that, but also some of the interesting things that they've said in this article is that octopuses have been virtually impossible to farm because one, the larvae of octopuses spend at least 20 days floating in the water before they settle on the seabed. So it makes it difficult to move on to the next phase because you cannot move on till you know where they're settling, how to shift them and all. And they're saying that even if they move through that phase, the hatchlings are very delicate, plus they're very finicky apparently. Even if they feed a form of fish paste or anything, they will not eat it every day because octopuses are like, oh, I don't like to eat the same thing every day, day in day out, very
Hmm.
very much like most humans out there. But like, oh my god, I just ate this yesterday, I don't want to eat this today. So yeah, that is the problem. And I think because they will, if they have to feed octopus different things every day, then probably the octopus and farming them and the return on them is not going to be great. So in some ways the octopus are actually telling the world that they don't want to be farmed, in a very clever way. Um, I wish that other animals could also oppose and maybe like be as finicky and as picky as them, but sadly that's not the case. And that is actually, I think, even with great white sharks, right? They say that you can't keep them in an aquarium. They stop eating, they stop functioning. So you have to kind of
Hmm.
leave them in the open sea, which is why you have other sharks in the aquariums, but you never have a great white shark.
Yeah, the octopus paralarva just sharing the screen when young cephalopods move about with the water current. That is a photograph from the Nueva Pescanova project. Yeah, some good pictures of octopus here as well. There is this new movie that I watched the other day. It's called Bright Creatures. It's about a friendship between an octopus and aquarium caretaker. It's a good movie. Worth. I would recommend it. Here are some activists in Madrid protesting against the Nueva Pescanova's plan to farm octopuses in um, Las Palmas. So yeah, I think I don't know.
And again,
Maybe if
I
there is
think
no supply, there will be no demand. I don't know, or maybe the price will
it
increase.
has to. It has to. And I think the main problem I have is like every time you read about these exotic animals, it says the principal markets are China and Japan. While Spain
Hmm.
also consumes 40,000 tons. But it always comes back to China. And China has a huge population. It's 1/8 of the earth. And we are also 1/8 of the earth, which is India. But we don't have those exotic tastes as much as Chinese people do. It really needs to be like something like a global effort to tell Chinese people that please start eating whatever everyone else is eating. And even in that, if you can start reducing and change your food
I
habits,
mean,
it would be great.
that would be a little bit of cultural appropriation and, telling them what to
Uh,
do. They won't take
yeah,
lightly to it.
but like when the earth is dying, do we really care about cultural appropriation or do we care about the earth?
I
What is
think
the
that there is a like the large faction of people would die saving their identity before they care about the earth, and that is
that
what
is that
every
that that is
conflict and war
absolutely
is
true.
about.
Isn't this what South Korea is trying to do? I think it's like really pushing people to have more babies because they don't want to like attract immigrants and say, okay, you can come and stay here and we'll give you citizenship.
Exactly.
They don't want to do that, even though they have like a dying population, aging population. They have very low birth rates. They still want to revive only their culture. They don't want to depend on people from other cultures coming in and changing their entire history and heritage.
Yes,
So yeah, this is
that is.
something that as humans, I think we keep holding on to it. But having said that, having talked about the octopus, talked about other animals, we have to make changes and very, very specific changes that we're aware of. That, okay, this is what is going to kill the planet. This is what I can do in my control. And that little changes would actually help humanity live longer. It doesn't matter if your heritage is going, but at least your children will be alive and they will have a world to see.
Mm, true. True. Cool. I think we will see what the Nueva Pescanova is up to in the coming weeks, if we get any other updates. But for now, I think that should be it for the story.
Okay, great. Let's move on to the next one. Um, Yeah, the next story is about the Timor pigeons. Only a few hundred Timor pigeons are alive. Um, there is still time to save them. Timor green pigeons face extinction, with global populations estimated at just 100 to 500 birds across 8 sites. A recent sighting of 3 birds in a new location in Timor Leste offered hope for this critically endangered species. The study, based on over 1,400 field survey days, suggests actual numbers may be even lower. Only Nino Conis Santana National Park holds more than 50 birds, while the species appears functionally extinct in Indonesia. Threats include ongoing hunting, even within protected areas, and habitat loss from forest conversion. The bird's unusual vulnerability when one is shot, others remain in the canopy, exasperates danger. Despite endangered status since 2000, recovery efforts remain limited, with protected areas lacking adequate funding and staff to control hunting effectively. Um, and the discussion question is also very interesting. It says, if discovering 3 birds is now considered encouraging, have we already failed the Timor green pigeon? Um, Very funny, but very serious as well. Like, if you're getting happy with just like 3 birds that we've seen, um, then that means that our benchmark or our level of actually saying that, okay, this is what is good conservation efforts, we've already kind of just not have, we don't have a good level then.
Mm. I'll just share the image of a Timor green pigeon. Beautiful looking bird. Beautiful looking bird. When we were in Indonesia, we as an I, we tried to photograph this bird for a long time. I think we caught some glimpses of it, heard some calls about it, but we weren't able to photograph or film this bird in the wild. Beautiful bird. Again, as Meghna said, less species remaining, but I think for 200 birds or whatever number of 500 birds, 100 to 500 birds remaining, three birds is kind of an achievement. Okay, new 3 birds. So that if there are 100 birds remaining, that adds like 3% to it, and 3% more, which is a big number in terms of conservation. So I think again, the species would go extinct otherwise. If we can save it, then it would be a great achievement for us. Again, the reason I think so. Ours is the only planet we know of that has life, and I think that diversity of life makes it beautiful, our planet beautiful and livable. Every as we keep on hammering and repeating the message that every uh, insect, bird, animal, plant has their role in the ecosystem, especially birds as pollinate sorry as sort of seed dispersers and things like that. So yeah, I think they're worth saving.
Yeah, and it's not just about even if they're worth saving or they're not worth saving or anything else. I think the lacking or the problem here is that there's not adequate funding and there's not adequate motivation to save these birds. It's the exact opposite of the first story that we read, that we had a lot of motivation and we actually saved the humpback whales to come back from extinction. But with these birds, there's not the same kind of efforts. So there was like similar efforts with tigers, there were similar efforts with other animals, but not with these birds yet. But if the same amount of effort and motivation can be applied here with the Timor pigeons, then I think we would see a similar trajectory of growth like we see with the whales or the tigers or any other animal that there are success stories of.
Mm. Mm. So hopefully the efforts will continue, and the um, funding, again, I think funding is a major issue when it comes to conservation. So the funding will
Especially in
continue,
developing
hopefully,
nations. Yeah,
especially
especially
in
in
developing
developing it.
nations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I honestly don't know when that would actually be solved, or if that can actually be solved, because with developing nations, wildlife takes the last seat in priority. It's the humans
Mm.
and a lot of human related problems. And hopefully there's like enough protest or enough awareness or enough backing and motivation to actually save these pigeons, because they are beautiful pigeons. A lot of these animals die only because we are careless with hunting them or killing them or destroying their habitats. The least we can do is try to put in some more conservation efforts when we know that they're on the brink of extinction.
True. So I think we will also keep following the story. The story seems there will be some more development because it's an ongoing effort. And yeah, we'll report back if we hear anything else.
Absolutely. So what do we have next on the rosters?
Cool. It's a marine story. So New Zealand opens marine reserves with groundbreaking Maori co-management model. I think we have been reporting on this theme of Indigenous involvement and Indigenous knowledge for the past few months, and I think it has taken a very uh, highlighted space in the media discourse in the last few 6 months or so. And again, welcome that. It's very good to see. Five new marine protected areas in New Zealand officially opened July 1st, 2026, after over a decade in collaborative effort. These no take marine reserves ban all extractive activities and represent a historic milestone as the first MPAs co managed by Indigenous people and the government through shared decision making. Te Auroa o Te Rakihua is jointly managed by the Maori tribe Kaitahu and the Department of Conservation, with a shared ranger team. The reserves protect seabed habitats, offshore canyons, rocky reefs, tidal lagoons, and kelp forests. This bottom up approach contrasts with an earlier failed attempt to create the Kermadec Ocean Sanctuary, which lacked adequate Maori consultation and violated fishing rights. A sixth MPA is expected soon. I think New Zealand has been very cautious and very protective of its environment for a long time now, in terms of what the natural beauty it has and all the, it's a small country but it has a lot of protected areas compared to its land area. So I think, and I think increasingly in every facet of government and governance, the indigenous knowledge is welcome and sort of taken into account. So I think going in that line of thinking and line of operations, this is a very commendable uh, job that they've done. Six, five new protected areas, marine protected areas. I think is is a good job. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's one of those things where if you've kind of stayed in New Zealand, you've ever spoken to Maori people, they do feel like they've been wronged a lot. So it's actually great that we see that they're making efforts to actually involve the Maori, and there's a co-management
Mm.
model. And as it says, even in the summary that Oops read out, it said that they tried to create an ocean sanctuary before called the Kermadec Ocean Sanctuary, but it lacked adequate Maori consultation and violated fishing rights, so that failed. So the Maoris are very important to New Zealand, and I think it's time that it's been recognized, and their involvement is also just as important as the others, like the Kiwis or the, yeah, I don't know.
Europeans.
I mean, yeah, the Europeans. I mean the Britishers and the Europeans and the Maoris, all of them are called Kiwis now. But it's just, I think, where you come from. But the Maoris have been wrong before. People know about the treaty and other things, so it's a great initiative, and I think it's very important because the Maoris have been here at least 700 or 600 years longer than the Britishers have been in New Zealand. So they know the land and they know the water, and they know how to manage it way more than the Britishers or the Europeans who have arrived later do know. So this is like one of those really positive and feel good stories that okay, it's a win-win situation for the humans and it's a win-win situation for nature as well.
Mm. And I think, as I said, like we have been reporting on a lot of indigenous involvement. I think where sometimes the rigid forms of governments fail. We have reported a lot of stories from South America, and I think similarly, I think that model. I believe it is spreading across the world. We have also reported on some stories from India where indigenous peoples are taking matters into their own hands, using the indigenous knowledge in a positive way and to make those positive impacts. And I think that's a model uh, every indigenous communities in where all over the world. I mean, indigenous communities are there all over the world. The first peoples of the land. So I think everyone should take that inspiration, and we can do something in that regard, where the government fails or where the government stops for all its bureaucracy and all its red tape. So I think it's a great initiative, but also it's a great template for others to follow.
Yep, yep, absolutely. And I think with marine reserves, it's actually one of those things that Oops and me have spoken about a lot of times. That if you protect the oceans and you actually create these marine reserves, it in fact helps us back, because these marine protected reserves with no fishing and no hunting spill over, because there's so much more life there, and they spill over to the non-protected areas, and it actually helps with all the fishing that's going on there. So this is a really great initiative, and I hope that we, can give you more updates about the sixth MPA, and if there are like positive updates about the creation of these marine protected areas and what, in the future, what it means for the oceans and how it has actually helped recover the oceans there.
Cool. That'll be great. Cool.
Okay. Then moving on to the next topic. Somehow we're really efficient with our topics today. It's really rarely that we do this, but yeah, today we are. So yeah, Cougars cut deadly vehicle deer collisions in the US by up to 76%, study shows. A new study reveals that cougar presence makes roads significantly safer by reducing deer vehicle collisions by 76% over 5 years, with collision probability falling by 67%. Rather than simply hunting deer populations, cougars create a powerful landscape of fear that fundamentally alters prey behavior patterns. This fear based effect pushes black-tailed deer away from developed areas and shifts their activity from nighttime to daytime hours. By strategically changing where and when deer forage, cougars indirectly protect humans. In the US, deer vehicle collisions total 1.6 to 2.1 million annually, killing 200 to 440 people and costing approximately $10 billion yearly. The research published in Current Biology demonstrates that apex predators provide unexpected safety benefits beyond their direct ecological roles, fundamentally shaping or reshaping prey movement patterns across landscapes. This kind of reminds me of our speaker that we had recently, because he spoke about the ecology of fear and how like populations
Mm.
and animals and their behavior changes. And he talked about how like if you had the pumas and if you didn't have the pumas, how the animals just below them reacted. So this is completely similar to that study, and in this case it's the cougars. And it shows that obviously like if there are predators, then their behavior changes, and it's probably similar for us, right? Like if we have some fear factor, then it forces us to behave in a certain way, and if we don't have that, then there's a certain way humans would also behave.
Mm. Yeah, Chinmay Sonavane, you can go check out that episode and from the playlist. But he also spoke about how this presence of cougars or mountain lions or pumas, whatever you choose to call them, they are also there. There's a potential um, that they are also helping the farmers. They're also helping economically, and I think this puts a dollar value to it. The $10 billion that is, um, you know, spent yearly on these deer vehicle collisions, that can be, you know, reduced significantly. Again, a lot more research needs to happen, and Chinmay, our guest, a few episodes ago, he spoke about his future research in this area as well. But there seems to be a correlation directly with the number of pumas and the number of collisions that can happen. So the important part from our end is that these to understand from a layman's perspective or a commoner's perspective is that these animals, the pumas, they need a lot of area, as in they have huge territories. So that balance, we as the representatives of, the democracy that we live in, have to strike. All the cul-de-sacs that are being built in all these forested areas kind of fragment, and I think Chinmay also spoke about this, fragment the forest in a way that these animals cannot move around. So uh, it's that's it's those part I think we have to pay our stern attention to.
Yeah, like there are, yeah, that is true. Plus, I think it's not just the areas. I think the definitely the areas, but also we need to see if there are places that cougars used to exist earlier and they don't exist right now, and if there was some
Mm,
way to safely relocate them here from other places or introduce them here. That would actually help with the deer population, and this is like the same example that we give with the oceans, that you need an apex predator to kind of balance the ecosystem below it. So you need the sharks in the ocean, and you need the cougars, the pumas, the lions, the tigers, all of those apex predators in the environment to balance it out. And in this case, the cougars are actually making deers more alert. They're having they're following the daytime cycle instead of a nighttime cycle, which is their usual cycle that they would follow. Plus, they would be more inside the forest because they would be more hidden. They're not visible to their predators, so it helps the deers as well. So it's something where environmentally you're protecting the deers, you're protecting the humans. So just one introduction of the cougars can change a lot of things. And this, as usual, shows us how beautiful environment, the environment and nature is, that you have an apex predator and everything kind of just falls into place. Like, you need that kind of a boss in the top of the hierarchy to
mm,
help navigate the system. And it's similar in nature as well. So I just hope that wherever they see a lack of this, like this study that reveals this, there's some actionable consequence to it. Like, it's not just something that we're talking about or other people talk about or the science community talks about. I hope that there's actually some kind of action that's put into place, and some kind of regulations and rules that are put into place, so that cougars can effectively have more area to roam around, and there are less deer collisions, so less deer deaths and less human deaths.
mm, mm. And as the article says, it will have direct impact on the sort of spending that is done for these kinds of accidents as well.
Yes.
Cool. I
Okay.
will move on to the next one. This is a story from the National Geographic. It's hot days are hard on bees. Here's how you can help them cool off. Rising temperatures stress bee populations, affecting pollination, crucial for ecosystems and agriculture. Heat reduces pollen's nutritional value and makes bees sluggish, threatening plant reproduction. When temperatures climb, bees prioritize survival over pollination. Honeybees spread water on honeycomb and fan their wings to evaporate it, while bumblebees cool nests by flapping their wings vigorously. High temperatures can reduce male bee fertility by killing their sperm. Solitary bees, comprising most of world's 20,000 bee species, face greater challenges with fewer cooling strategies available to them. If overheated, a solitary bee can lose muscle control and bodily mobility. Despite these significant challenges, research on how bees respond to extreme heat remains limited, with effects studied in fewer than 1% of cases. So, this is very concerning to me because, as we know, bees kind of are the backbone, and we have repeated this multiple times in our show as well. Bees are kind of the backbone of all the food that we eat, all the agriculture that happens, all the fruits, all even the wine that you drink. You know, that is bees basically doing their job. So, and it would be impossible for a human to take like a stick or you know small stick to pollinate plants. Robots, I mean AI and robots, they can never do it. So this is our only hope, and we've heard the expression that how humanity will die off as soon as the bee starts dwindling down. So this is a grave concern, and even graver is the concern that there is a lack of research on it. uh,
Yeah. And the fact that I think we take bees for granted. Like we just feel like, oh yeah, if the bees will survive, he'll survive, they fine. But we don't see how rising temperatures and global warming and climate change actually affects the smaller insects. We see that on ourselves, we see that on like the planet as a whole, that there are hurricanes and there are droughts and there are floods and everything, but we don't see it on a microscopic level or a macroscopic level. And in this case with the bees, we know that bees are extremely important, but we don't study enough to see what exactly happens there and what we can do. But again, I don't know. It's like, what is the solution for this? We can't really like just keep some cooling equipment just wherever the beehives are, because bees are wild. There are very few bees that are farmed, and even in that, where the bees are farmed, it's more a practice of selling the honey. It's not really to protect the bees. So I honestly don't know what the solution in this. There's just a problem, but the heating seems to be just getting more and more intense. It doesn't seem to be rolling back at any point of time.
yeah, and I mean even if we kind of keep fans or whatever, uh, we won't be able to control where each of these bees go, and where each of these bees, um, you know, which flowers they visit or which plants they visit, etc. So, you know, uh,
Yeah.
that whole cycle of things will be impacted, if these bees cannot perform their um, you know duties, let's say, or perform their daily life in a correct way. And due to that, the agriculture will suffer, first of all, but then also production of things like honey and other things as well will suffer. I think research in this area would be um, imperative and required, because otherwise we won't be able to take that action. And as you said, Meghna, I think also, um, you know the what
Eh?
was I going to say? The macro species or the micro
Yeah.
species are not taken into account,
Concentration. Yeah.
you know anytime. Save tiger, but who will say save the bees? 20,000
Yeah.
species of bees. can't even imagine how many species that is. So um, yeah, it's a big job for us, and they are kind of the backbone. We stop realizing that. Yeah.
Yeah, no matter what AI, what robots, what humans, we don't, and we can't pick how bees would pick flowers and how bees would pollinate. Like we can try and we can maybe survive, but there is no way we can replicate their hard work and effort and how they play an important role in the ecosystem. Secondly, even if we come up with like fans, we don't know the kind of effects or consequences that would have on the bees. One, we would have to have them like in a very slow whatever level that the bees can actually tolerate, because the fans that we use are something that most little insects can't tolerate because it's too much for them. So even if you make those, then do you actually start growing bees only in a controlled environment, or how do you take care of agriculture and everything else? This is a very very serious problem, and this is where it gets really real. Like, we talk about the other things that, oh, there are octopus farming, there's this going on, and there's that deforestation, but this is where we know how bad the situation for the earth is. So we need to do something really really urgently to fix this problem, so that at the macroscopic and the microscopic level things start getting better. So it would start getting better, and at our level also it's all great. Yeah,
Hmm.
people, we need to wake up to global warming and climate change.
It is real, and to the deniers, I think, yeah, if you are in denial, then I think you're living under a rock, or something like that. So yeah, we'll
Yeah.
continue following this if any research updates are there, because I think this is an area that needs research. But yeah, we'll follow this and report back if there is any updates on this topic as well. Yeah.
Yes. And moving on to, I think, the last topic before we have our guest is Philippines Supreme Court rules monitoring commercial fishing vessels is unconstitutional. The Philippine Supreme Court invalidated Fisheries Administrative Order number 266, which mandated commercial fishing vessels install tracking systems and electronically report catches. The regulation was partially implemented before its 2022 suspension during court proceedings with devices on 52% of vessels. The court's January 2026 decision, publicly announced in August, concerns small scale fishers and scientists fearing reduced oversight. Without continuous tracking, authorities may struggle detecting commercial vessels entering municipal waters reserved for local fishers. Pablo Rosales of Pangista Filipinas expressed concerns that illegal incursions will worsen with monitoring eliminated. The Department of Agriculture, Bureaus of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources filed a reconsideration motion seeking to restore protection for strained fish stocks and prevent increased commercial fishing pressure on coastal zones. Um, the weird part in all of this is that the Supreme Court, like every country probably has a Supreme Court, that's supposed to actually decide in favor of the greater good. And in this case, it's actually saying that, oh, let's not monitor any of the commercial fishing vessels. That is actually unconstitutional. Let's let them do whatever they're doing, even if they're illegally fishing, or they're illegally entering places, or they are straining the already strained fish stocks. Let it be, but we shouldn't be tracking them because that is unconstitutional.
um, yeah, I think there's a famous quote from one of the famous, I think it was a TV lawyer or something like that. I think the quote is, I'm paraphrasing it a little bit, but the quote goes something around like, lawyers and the court system is not to extract justice, it's to practice law. So basically they have done just that. They have said, okay, this is legally maybe in the gray zone, and that's why we will pass them as unconstitutional. But whether it's morally wrong, ethically wrong, or environmentally wrong, or environmentally in the good, for the greater good or not, do they care? I don't think so. I don't think so. Again, I think here comes also the role of a Congress or a House of Representatives or a similar body, um, in a democratically ruled country, where they are the ones who would be able to pass the laws, which then the judiciary, the judicial system actually upholds, and people can make those cases filed against a violation of those laws. So I think this is also should be a wake up call for the Philippines, saying that the legal system that we have currently protecting these kinds of ecosystems is not adequate, maybe.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't understand, like, what is the use of going to the Supreme Court then? And it's not even like, some random person has gone and filed like a public interest litigation or anything. This is literally the Department of Agriculture, Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources, and they are filing a reconsideration motion. So the Department of Fisheries is actually concerned about what is happening, but the Supreme Court is saying no, it's fine. Like, let the commercial fishing vessels do whatever they want to do, which in my head is like, there is one government entity that wants change, and another government, not government entity, but another pillar of judiciary that is saying that no, this doesn't need to be done. Like, if it was some random person, I would still say that, oh, the government also needs to take accountability and the court needs to take accountability. The government is trying to take accountability in this case, but the court doesn't want to.
Mm, yeah. I think it's it's sad, and we have the discussion question touches on those exact topics as well. When environmental protection conflicts with constitutional rights, how should courts weigh livelihood against conservation? I think again that's where the law comes in, that if the laws are strong and well defined, then the courts can make a very black and white decision that okay, this is the law of the land and this is what we are deciding on. And if that is not the case, then I think it would be very difficult for the courts here to decide as well. Again, as always, we'll sort of keep an eye on the story, right?
Yep, we will, and we hope that the Supreme Court actually reverses his decision. If that happens, as usual, you will hear it in our updates. Yeah. So, oops. Are we going ahead with the guest, or are we
Yes,
doing?
our producer will be transferring her right now. I think we can start with the introduction, Meghna.
Okay, perfect. So today, today we are joined by Ligia Pizzatto, a biologist with PhD in ecology from Brazil. Her biggest passions are reptiles in general and snakes in particular. She has researched snakes since her undergrad years, and after spending a few months in Australia collecting data on pythons for her PhD, she decided to come back for a postdoc. Then she joined Professor Rick Shine's group to research water pythons in the Northern Territory. She then researched behavior of cane toads, their parasites, and effects on native frogs as principal investigator of an art discovery fellowship until 2012. Chasing new opportunities, she moved to NSW to research behavior of endangered green and golden bell frogs. She then settled in Melbourne outskirts, working as an environmental educator and a council run educational farm for almost 10 years. The winds of change took her to the beautiful Gippsland, where she worked as a project manager and ecologist consultant for a year. In September 2023, she returned to academia as a research fellow, this time helping to protect and understand the life of freshwater turtles at Professor Van Dyke's research group at La Trobe, Albury, Wodonga. Hi, Ligia. Welcome to the. Thank you for taking the
Hello.
time to join.
Yeah, thank you
Hello.
for the invite.
Yeah, I mean, your trajectory is amazing. I mean, you've done so much and you've worked on so many amazing species. Our first question is usually like, what was your journey and how did it get you to your research that we're going to be talking about today?
Well, I think my bio was quite extensive there. but yeah, like from my passion for snakes, I kind of transited around all different kinds of reptiles. Snakes are still my favorite. But yeah, I have a big heart for the scaly animals. So when I started working with Professor James van Dyke with the turtles, um, I only had work with sea turtles before as a volunteer back home in Brazil when I was still undergrad. And yeah, just seeing all the destruction that the foxes were doing on nests, and yeah, seeing all the nests gone every season, and understanding how hard it's to find these nests unless you are a fox. I remembered of my time in the Northern Territory working with Professor Shine when they started to research taste aversion, and they start training basic all the native frog predators in the territory not to eat the toads by causing them this vomiting sensation. That well, this could work with foxes down here in the south, and yeah. So from there, I had to convince Van that it could work. He wasn't very convinced in the beginning, and then we found some new studies in Spain with foxes, and yeah, it was pretty reassuring that they have quite a good success there. So we tried, why not? So that's how my project was born.
I think you like reptiles, the animals that you have been interested in, and again, hats off to you for continuing to research along those lines. But I think one of the things that is there in the popular media, the scaly and the crawly things, can be a lot fear-inducing in a lot of people. So how do you intend to, or since we have you on the show, what would be your sort of, I guess, starting message to all the people that are scared of snakes or anything that is sort of scaly and crawly and those kinds of animals? Yeah.
Yeah, I think as humans, we do have that natural tendency of being scared of snakes, and I think that's a good thing in general, because that's what keep us alive. So we share that history of evolution with all the primates, and it's very well established in the evolution of primates that you should be careful with snakes. But it's more to do with the respect to the animals and the fear. It's fine to be wary and to be careful because, well, the snakes, crocodiles, I think they have to be respected because they can definitely kill you. But I think it's getting to know the animals to transform that fear into just respect and being able to live together, you know. So I remember when I first saw a snake, I was a little child. I think I was about 6, and it was a big rattlesnake. I was in a friend's family relative farm, and it was a big rattlesnake just by the swimming pool. And my parents kind of freaked it out, and they got like a tool and went there and cut the snake in half, and and then I was like terrified. I was like, oh, look at all this blood. And I always had that thing for animals, no matter how little or how big and how scary they were. It's like, oh, should we be killing them? And felt sorry for it. And then at uni, when I first decided to do biology, was in an open day. So that's a really good thing for people that are not sure what they want to do. Just visit the universities, go and see what people are doing there. And at that stage, I wanted to be a vet, because I thought people that deal with animals are vets. Knew nothing about biology and ecology. That wasn't, a profession that I knew anything about it. And I remember seeing these snakes in terrariums. And I was fascinated just by looking at them, like they were so still and they looked so mysterious. And I realized how much I did not know about snakes because I grew up in an apartment in a big city. And I just fell in love. I missed the whole university tour, the rest because I was just watching them through the glass. So, and I think that's my approach today to anything. It's not because I'm a biologist that I don't fear animals. I don't fear most animals, but I have an inevitable fear of cockroaches. And I think the more like my approach to any animals that I kind of I'm not sure about this. I don't like it very much. Like I had similar feelings for spiders at some point in my life, and then I start reading about them and what they do, and I start observing them, and then I fall in love. It's just kind of natural. So I think is the unknown that we have to deal with, and I think that's my approach. Like every time that I feel like, oh yeah, I don't like this very much, or I'm not comfortable around these animals, I just try to find some information, because it's usually misinformation that brings those feelings.
Yeah, I mean, like how you spoke about, how you started getting interested in snakes, but in general people are not. Similarly, like how do you get people to care about the freshwater turtle that they'll probably never see? Like how can they care about those turtles and then the foxes predating on the nests? What can you do to create that kind of awareness?
Well, I think, well, between snakes and turtles, the turtles are much easier to convince people. I think the sea turtles are get much more attention, because there's been much more media around it, and the freshwater turtles kind of, yeah, people don't see it. They don't know that they are there unless they live close to a billabong or a water course where they eventually see some coming to nest and that sort of thing. So I worked a lot with other people in the community. So there's like a turtle shelter here in Albury Wodonga. There's Turtles Albury Wodonga, and Charlene that runs the shelter does a lot of education with kids around. So we all work together trying to put more the freshwater turtles more on the media, and show that how interesting, like they can have cute faces. Oh yes, but they can also bite and all that things. And trying to call attention, because I think once people know that they're around, most of the people are quite supportive. They say, "Oh yeah, they're cool. What they do." Like I think the times that people really hated turtles because they thought that they were eating all the fish in the rivers and competing with their livelihood, which it did happen in the past. Those days are mostly gone, I would say, but it's more like the lack of awareness. People do not know that they are there, that they are in trouble, that the numbers are declining. So try to work with these other groups that can bring captivity animals to them, or even share photos and just talk. Like, people like to talk.
Mm. In the areas that you work in, is there any again, as you said, like the sea turtles with all the beautiful or sad images that come out of the sea with them tangled in nets and things like that, they obviously get a lot more attention. But these freshwater turtles, obviously, is there any risk of predation or poaching from humans that you see, or is it mostly just the introduced predators that are causing the problem?
So in Australia, we don't feel that we have much issues with poaching.
Mm-hmm.
And even like people hunting, it's more just the indigenous communities that are allowed. And maybe it's more common in the north of Australia. In the south, especially in the region that I am, the freshwater turtles are actually totems for the local indigenous people.
Mm-hmm.
So that means that they are supposed to protect them. So I work with a few groups around this area, and trying to find ways to improve the populations so they can have their totems back. But some other groups, especially in the north, like it's base of their diet as well. In Papua New Guinea, people really depend on turtles for iron intake. So there's some research from some colleagues from Charles Darwin University showing that without eating that source of iron, they do really get iron deficiency. So it's trying to balance the conservation. Sorry, my cat's pushing my screen. It's the time that she just woke up. Yeah, it's trying to balance that the conservation and the natural resource, like a food source for people as well.
And like we have touched on few of the subjects that your paper deals with, but for our audience, if you can just give us like a high level overview of the problem that you had identified and sort of the I guess the solutions that you looked at in your paper, that would be really useful for our audience as well.
Yeah, so basically around this area, so we are blessed with a lot of creeks and rivers and flood plains and all that. So we have 3 species of turtles, and since the 70s, there are studies showing that the populations are steadily declining, and about 90% of the nests in a lot of the areas that we have data, they are completely gone in just a day after, almost immediately after the turtles lay. So 90% of the eggs were not 100%. The foxes take it. So basically, we still see turtles around, but they are like the big guys, which is good because they are the breeding ones. But if you need to recover populations, like when the old ones die, if you don't have young ones getting in to the population cannot grow. So eventually that will all collapse. And it's taken that long because turtles live hundreds of years. So we still have them, but we see that at some point it will collapse if we keep not having any juveniles. And when we trap year after year to mark the turtles and see what's going on every year. And very rarely we get juveniles. So with Professor Van Dyke, my job was to work in this bigger project that was looking basically in different strategies. He runs a bigger citizen science project where he trains people to identify nests, mesh them with like a piece of chicken wire you put down, and the babies can dig their way out when they hatch. But the foxes usually can't dig the mesh. So that protects the nest. But it's very hard to find the intact nest. It's just a mud patch on the bank of a river or a wetland. So it's like a chance in a million, unless you get lucky and you are out exactly when the turtle decided to lay and you see that, oh, they're laying over there, and then you go and mesh it. The other way was fencing. So over in Australia, fencing is quite a main thing that we do for conservation, especially for mammals. But for reptiles, might not help much. And turtles, especially the eastern long-neck turtles, that they have a really long neck, and they go poking on things. And when they find a fence, sometimes they'll put their neck through, and then they feel there's something, and then they'll turn the neck to the side, and then they get stuck in a fence. And also we know that turtles move a lot, and some of them move on land, long distance. So if you just fence a nest, a beach that you know that the turtles nest there, you stop predators, but you also stop the movement of the turtles themselves and other animals that migrate. So it can be helpful, but it's not a one size fits all sort of approach. And then the third method that our group looked into is like these big floating islands that we have. It's basically a big tub of dirt that we deploy on a raft, and it's floating, and we put in the wetland, and the turtles come and nest in there. So it's a safe haven. The foxes usually won't swim to it. But then again, you have birds that might find it. So like nothing is 100%. So then I thought, well, taste aversion can be another option, especially like if we have a floating island in a wetland, and the floating islands are a bit tricky if you have currents as well. So to put in rivers, for example, that is a bit more difficult, because then you have the risk of that being ripped off and going down the river. So I thought, oh, well, we can try, like, some turtles will use the floating island, and then the ones that still going to the shore, if we have these foxes trained not to eat eggs, we can protect a much bigger number of animals.
Yeah. One of the things that I think intrigued
Sorry.
us about that's okay. One of the things that intrigued us about the paper was that it said that foxes arrived in the 1800s, but then why did total numbers like start crashing from the 1970s? Like how much of the total numbers crashing can be attributed to the foxes because they were already there for
Mm,
so many years,
mm.
or what changed their behavior suddenly to start poaching on turtles?
Well, I think we can't blame just the foxes. I think it's a number of changes. So if we think of the biggest change we had in all waterways with settlement and development, is like we damming rivers, we diverging courses. Wetlands have dried because we changed the course of rivers, changed flows, and all that. There is some evidence in Australia, that's a work of one of our PhD students in our group, um, that turtles were highly persecuted, with some states identified that there were bounties because people would say, "Oh, the turtles are eating all the fish," you
Oh.
know. Yeah. So there is all these things. So there was a historical persecution. There's changes in the water, the flows, and how the rivers actually used to work. That I would think that the changes in water courses were definitely the main cause, and then you put on top of that foxes and roads. A lot of turtles get hit on roads. It's not like a silly number; it's a lot, especially when they're moving during the breeding season. So I think all these things piled up, and because we don't have records of exact numbers how it was, so it probably is being declining for hundreds of years.
Mm.
And we
Okay.
have more foxes, like they do pretty well, especially around urban and semi-urban areas. Yeah.
Mm. And you mentioned floating islands in the last section as well. And the losses in those floating islands has been um, less as per the data in the paper. Um, is there a particular reason why the foxes won't swim out to those floating islands, or are these foxes generally like water averse?
Foxes can swim,
Mhm.
but it's not that they are like specialists on eating turtle eggs or turtles. They'll eat anything. So
Mm,
if the swimming is a big effort and it has a risk, and these islands are not like in the shallow, very shallow water,
right.
we kind of tow the islands with a kayak and all that. So it's too much of an effort. They'll go, so yeah, I'll try to find something else on the shore.
Mm,
Surely, if water levels drop and these islands are more reachable without a big swimming effort, they probably will get to it.
mm,
Um, yeah, some of the floating islands were so successful that we had lots of turtles trying to lay on the same island and digging out the other's nest, you know. So
mm,
we had to try to balance all those things, so that we had to go there and put a mesh and okay, this island is now closed, so more turtles couldn't get in there. And then we also have the birds coming to dig it out. So yeah, birds are pretty smart. They learn everything pretty quickly. So it's all it helps. It needs a lot of attention,
Mm.
but
So
it's not one silver bullet, and probably nothing when we're talking about ecology or nature will be. There's yeah, there's always something else.
yeah.
Mhm.
So birds, as you mentioned, these are from what I read in the paper. These are specifically ravens. Is that right?
I'm trying to remember. The ravens, if I remember correctly, they're mostly a problem on the shore,
Mm.
and yeah. But yeah,
Yeah.
ravens are smart, like crows, and
Yeah.
yeah. So they observe the animals. They observe us when we were walking around the wetland. It's quite intriguing. Actually, it would be nice to know how this learning process happens, because
Mm.
even during my taste aversion experiments, I was making artificial nests in one area, and I went at night time when the ravens are not there
Mm.
watching, um, and they still found the nests that I made during the night. So during the night in the rain, so like they definitely were not watching me, and you leave no marks. I don't mark the nest, so the foxes also don't learn that any of my markings means, oh, there's food here.
Mm.
So I have no idea how they do it. Um,
But yeah, I think it has been pretty well researched fact that the raven family can be pretty ingenious with
Smart,
their,
yeah.
yeah, pretty smart with their ways. So I think one of the things that has interested us from your paper is the sort of the taste aversion method, and we were certainly not very, um, I guess we hadn't heard of it before coming across your paper. So yeah, take us through that and what it involves and how you sort of tested out with the foxes.
Yeah, so the work with the other three methods, the island, the meshing, and the fencing,
Mm,
is mostly from our PhD student Christina Hunter.
right.
Yeah, so we all work it together, but that's her thesis. The taste aversion stuff I just started last year, so I've done 2 experiments, which I will finish the last one this season, and then the paper will come hopefully shortly after. But basically, you put in the food that you're trying to make the animal to avoid. You put a chemical that induces vomiting or nausea, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then you put the food out there, they'll go eat maybe once, twice. It depends on how um, doubtful they are. Say, oh, it's making me sick now. And once they feel that sickness, they start associating, oh no, every time that I eat eggs now, I feel sick. So I won't
Mm,
eat anymore. So that's
mm,
exactly how, oh, Jesus, my cat. Um, how we learn to avoid certain foods, right? All
mm,
vertebrates have that learning ability, and that keep us safe from potential poisonous food. Surely, after a while, the animals tend to forget, and they will try to eat again. So it's trying to make that aversion to last long enough to pass the incubation season, basically, what I'm trying. Yeah.
And like, once the foxes have a taste aversion to these eggs, are there other food sources or enough food sources for the foxes that they wouldn't try other novel methods or try to still come back to the turtles? Is it just that the turtle eggs are easier for them to predate on?
Yeah, if you think of an egg is a very highly nutritious food source, it doesn't run away. So it's just there in the ground. They have to dig. If the ground is very hard, they might start digging and then give up, go away. And then the next time they come back, dig a little bit more until they get it. I work a lot with cameras, so I monitor the nests, and you can see once they find, they'll come, like even after they ate the egg in that nest, they go away. An hour later, they come to check again. So they have this behavior that they go to the same place once they find food there, and that's why it's so destructive for the turtles, because turtles tend to choose very specific features in the landscape to where they lie. So, and you have a lot of turtles lying in the kind of same area. So there will be several nests in the area. And like in some of my experiments, I buried a single quail egg and the fox can find it very easily. They have no problems. And because they are so generalist feeders, if they decide, okay, I'm not touching eggs anymore, it's making me sick, they have a different sort of food, which for in Australia, that's not a big worry. Because they are invasive animals. So most of people would rather they get all killed than be around here. But we will never be able to kill all foxes. It's just not, not feasible. And a single one that's left in the landscape, we'll still be able to find all the nests in 1 or 2 nights. So the taste aversion training only works if animals have an option food source. For example, to train a snake would be very hard because they are very specialists. They tend to eat only one type of food. So it's not that they was like, well, if I stop eating this, that I, through many hundreds, thousands of years of evolution, I had nothing else to eat. So it doesn't work for animals that are specialists.
And so, can in the findings or in your research thus far, do you think that this taste aversion method could be scalable? Because it seems to us like a very, I guess, cost-effective and ingenious method to keep protecting the animals we want to protect while still not seriously issuing a cull order or maybe killing them with guns or something like that. Do you think that this method would be scalable and sustainable over a long period of time to protect these endangered animals?
So it's part of my project to look at cost efficiency. But why I choose to go to this method is basically because it's cheap. So you need a few eggs, unless you have like big egg production issues. which we had when we had the first wave of bird flu. Eggs were quite expensive. And the chemical used is a common fungicide that is used in agriculture exactly for this purpose, to stop animals eating certain types of grains and crops. So it's all not like over the top expensive stuff. It does sound a lot of effort, but especially in Australia, we spend so much money with lethal control of foxes and all invasive predators.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem is, it doesn't help the turtles, because you can try to kill the foxes in an area and keep the densities a bit lower. That it does help some animals. But for the turtles, if there's one fox left in the landscape, they will come to the wetland and find all the nests of the season. So you don't need a big number of foxes, you just need one. So I think in terms of management, it probably it'll be more efficient if it's combined with the lethal control. So you do the lethal control, help the other animals, and then you train the foxes that are left just to avoid turtle eggs. But then the other good thing of the technique is that, well, that's really the only tool we have to try to help turtles in areas where you can bait foxes or shoot. So around towns, for example, these semi-rural areas, like baiting, it's very difficult because you have pet animals going around, and it's a whole, like, councils always have trouble. They can't do anything because they can't put poison around. They can put baits around and risk someone's dog dying. And with the taste aversion, if a dog get one of my eggs, well, it will just vomit, the worst case scenario. So it's the risk is much lower. It won't kill a dog or a fox, or so it's kind of like, especially in these urban and rural areas, we have our hands tied. We can't do, like, you can't be shooting near a town. So that's why we thought, like, we need to find something.
Yeah, the other methods that you mentioned, sort of the fencing and the islands in specific, I think they cost a lot of money
as well. Yeah.
As well, per creating those islands as well. Like, in terms of we asked about the scale, but in terms of the money that goes in, does your research also cover sort of that aspect of things where this needs to be communicated in an effective way to the taxpayers, basically, in order for the governments or the local governments to I guess invest in or take interest in this sort of a project? Do you see that aspect being easier for the local governments to convince as well with this taste aversion method?
Yeah. So I think a good thing in my project, the way that I see it and I plan it, is there are a lot of people that work, or volunteer groups that work in land care groups. Basically, members of the community, they want to help. They want so they go a lot of times like planting trees and doing revegetation works. And if they could do pest management, they would. So the idea is that once I find the exact way to do this, I can have a protocol that we can train people, we can work with these groups. And these, like my whole project, already run 8 wetlands in the, I tested in eight wetlands in the last season. And that's all with volunteer groups that are connected to the Wodonga Urban Land Care Network. So these are members of the community. You know, we will get like a protocol that will be like a recipe, a cake recipe that people can follow, and they can do it on ground. So that saves a lot of money to land managers as well. You know, and it gives that sense of belonging to the community as well. It's like, well, we can help with this because at the moment they can't. And I was just I have very limited funding still for this project, so I was just getting like small grants here and there and trying to apply for the big grants. And I get more and more groups in further away areas that are saying, well, yes, but I can't be there. I can't help to train. I still don't have like that capacity, you know. So there is a lot. It's been a lot of people interested in saying, oh yes, we want to try to do this, and you know. So I think that's the beauty. It's like trying to find a solution that more people can use, and because the chemical is not a dangerous chemical, you know, you don't have, it's like it's your usual PPE. It's just gloves and goggles if you were preparing the chemical, you know. So yeah, that's the idea.
Yeah, one of the things that you mentioned were that, you know, on the islands that you created, there was like a fight with turtles wanting to nest on that same island. With the sea or the ocean turtles, they usually come back to the same beach and they nest on the same beach, and even their babies come back to the same beach. Is it not similar to that with freshwater turtles? Are they more adaptive to they might lay their eggs?
So we know that freshwater turtles choose certain traits in the beach. So they like, you know, if it's not too much vegetation, because maybe it's too hard to dig if there's too many plants and roots in the way. They like a certain angle, a certain type of soil, but we don't know like if they always go to the same beach year after year. That requires a really long-term study. You have to have all your animals marked, and we see some turtles, and the freshwater turtles move around a lot as well. So some stay around the wetland, and they might use, like we see areas in the wetlands that every season the turtles are laying in that area, but we don't know if it's the same turtles. And to be honest, not even with the marine turtles, there is this suggestion that they come back to the same beach year after year, and it's the beach that they hatch it. But there's actually not really good evidence on that. If you think like a sea turtle who live at least 100 years, like who collected that data? So there is this perception and this story, but the data is not, you know, there might be one turtle they found coming to the same beach but the evidence is not even that good for sea turtles as well.
Mm. And then in terms of the freshwater turtles, in terms of choosing the nest site, is there an identified pattern then to it, or is it completely random? And then the follow-up question would be, how do you then choose the areas that you want to train or these taste aversion methods to be applied to, and how do you sort of section off those areas that you implement these methods in?
So there, as I said, there's some things that we know that the turtles choose, and that's been work of several other researchers. But the tricky part is, it depends on climate of the area, the weather, so things are a bit different in Western Australia, for example. Last year, we had an honors student that was trying to look into these issues, these questions a bit better. And we walked a lot. It was 3 of us walking every single day and night along 2 wetlands to try to find when they were nesting, where they were nesting, what they are choosing, and monitoring the weather. And even like these areas were just a couple of kilometers from each other, there were different rain patterns. So it's very funny, the rains here. I was like, oh yeah, it's raining over there across the road, and it's not raining right on this wetland. And so basically, what he saw, it was that the turtles were choosing to come to nest after big storms. So not during the storm, but after big storms. But there are other work of Western Australia, for example, and that was the opposite. They were coming when the storms were forming. So they maybe feel the barometric pressure change. So we still don't know much. And that's also like that was part of his work, trying to find, well, how we can find turtle nests, when do we go out? Because before we just go out in the rain and, we know that we see turtles moving around in the rain. So we go in the rain. So, okay, so it's not really in the rain, it's just after the rain, but that works here. We have to start looking at different areas to see if it works in different areas. And the evidence that we have suggests that it can be quite area specific, which makes our work much harder. To identify where we need to action. Professor Van Dyke, Professor Deb Bauer, and Professor Ricky Spencer. So they're in 3 different universities. So we tend to work together a lot. The turtle group is very small. We try to join forces as most we can. So they have this big community project called 1 Million Turtles, that they train people how to mesh the nest, how to identify, talk about the floating islands and all. And they have an app called TurtleSat, which everyone can download the app and record any turtle sites that they see. So if it's the turtle is dead, if it's the turtle was crossing the road, if the turtle was laying an egg, or if it's a destroyed nest, if it's an intact nest, any site. And using the data from the app, I could see around my region where there were lots of destroyed nests. And a lot of it is in private properties as well. And I was able to contact the owners of the property and say, oh, I know, it's like I work with the group from 1 Million Turtles, and you enter this data in the turtle sat, and people, oh, I thought no one would look at this data, saying, no, we do. And then I came to work on their land, So it's a really important tool, and people really like to participate and say, well, at least we are contributing with something, trying to. It's just a little step, you just record, I saw a turtle here. And that also helped, for example, Professor Rick Spencer to work with the New South Wales Transport Department and say, oh, look, we need road protection in these areas because turtles are getting squashed on this road. So it's a very good tool that help us to decide where we need to tackle first.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I think we really like the ingenious and sort of the, I guess, non-lethal methods that you've been researching on. And as you said, it is very like in your own example, it is very citizen science friendly. Anybody with some basic training is able to deploy this method of training the foxes for taste aversion, and it is prime like primarily it is a non-lethal method, so that is definitely a win in our book. In terms of your future research, you said that the paper is coming out soon, but your future projects and research, just wanted to know a little bit about that as well.
So my plan, I'm just as I said, finishing up the first trials, and there is a lot to do in terms of how can we make that aversion. So it basically, my trials say, yeah, this is working. The foxes, after trained, they do avoid the eggs, but it's not lasting long enough as it was for the work that was done in Spain, which I based my idea. So the next step is trying to figure out ways to make that aversion to last longer. So it could span at least 3-4 months, which is the incubation of most of the turtle species. And that might involve combining different smells, because there is some evidence that we tend to remember things better if there is a novelty associated with the event. So for the foxes, they've been eating eggs for quite a long time. So it's not a novel food that I'm trying to make them averse to. It would be much easier if it was a novel food for them. So if we have like a novel smell associated with these, and we usually use vanilla, because vanilla is not in our environment, unless you are where it's native. You might find that some animals might know vanilla. So then there's that vanilla smell, and then they eat eggs, and then they feel sick. And every time they do smell vanilla, they'll say, "No, I'm not eating in this area." So that's another. It's another step that complicates the technique a bit more, but it's one of the ways that it did work for foxes in Spain as well. So I'm slowly building different layers and see if we can find something that say, oh, well, from management point of view, this might be useful and cost effective. And I also want to understand more about the fox behavior. So I really want to have some GPS collars in some foxes to see once they are trained, do they stay around the wetland and still protect, keep other foxes away because they are a bit territorial, right? Or do they go somewhere else and I think, no, I'm not going over there again, and in which case they wouldn't be protecting the area, and other foxes that are not trained can come in. So there's a lot of questions to answer.
Mm.
Thank you so much for like taking the time to explain everything so well and so amazingly, so that all our audiences who may have zero idea about foxes and turtles and how they behave, they have a clear understanding of it. We hope and we would love to get your updates on your project and what is happening going in the future. But thank you so much for giving your time to us today and talking about your fantastic and ingenious research.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I hope yeah, people did have a good information there.
Absolutely, we did. We
Yeah.
did. Yeah, we learned so much from you. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
Our
you.
producer will take care of you in the other room. Thank you so much for joining. Yeah, that was very interesting to talk about,
And very novel.
and again, very novel way of dealing with a problem that is seen across the world in some form or another. Yeah, really learned a lot.
Yeah. Yep. And obviously, we are drawing our episode to a close. And I actually want to talk about the research only that we spoke about with our, with our guest. What did you think about the research? How different was it to, understand that there are ways to actually mitigate and change an animal's pattern without any harmful inducing chemicals? Do you support it? Do you not support it? Do you think there are better methods? But also, how do you feel about the fact that every time we are the ones who cause river systems to change, habitat loss, ecosystem destruction, it's actually us forcing animals to change rather than change ourselves? Would love to get your opinion on all of these things. We always look forward to your comments. But yeah, that's about it from our side.
Yeah, and definitely subscribe to our channel. And we have been getting a steady flow of subscribers, but we also understand that this is a niche kind of show, so it hasn't been as great as we would like. But share this with as many people as you can, so that this sort of message gets out in the world, and at a time when the world needs to hear more about these sorts of issues. You can follow us on all the different social media platforms. We go live everywhere all at once, so you'll be able to catch us wherever you follow us. If you're listening to a recorded version of this episode, then do consider leaving a rating for the same reasons and sharing it with someone who shares your viewpoint. But other than that, that's it for today, and we shall see you next Sunday. Same time, same channel. Have a good one, guys.
Bye bye.